Hey you, do you like to paint? Have you always wanted to paint but you're not really sure where to start? Do you like this painting and think it's pretty? Do you want to make it yourself? If you said yes to any of these questions, stay tuned. Hey guys, it's Jordan, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint bubbles using stuff that you can find around your house. Now, I adapted this tutorial from someone that I saw on TikTok doing this with colored pencils, and I'll be linking their TikTok in the description. But I decided to adapt it and use it with paint because I feel like paint's a little easier for people to use, because colored pencils you really have to layer and make sure it's smooth. To start, I'm going to go over what you need to complete this tutorial, and it's going to take a little bit of scavenger hunting to find some objects. Okay, so the first thing you need is a piece of paper or canvas painted completely black and completely dry. So I did this yesterday. It's a canvas board that I got at Michael's for a couple of bucks. And as you can see, it's painted fully black, very opaque, and it's dry. I'm not getting paint on my fingers here. So that's the first thing you need, and you're gonna wanna set that aside and let it dry for like 20 minutes after you paint it. Next, you're gonna need some objects that can make circles. So here I have half an Easter egg, and I've breaking it in half so that way I can use this kind of like a stamp for my bubbles. If you're good at drawing circles, you don't really need these, but I am not. So I have that egg, I have this plastic cup, a bottle cap for some really small bubbles, and this coffee can lid for some like huge ones because I have a really big canvas. Next, you're actually going to need your painting supplies. So the paint that you need is a lot of white, because not only are we dunking these objects in the white paint and then putting them on canvas, but we need it for highlights. You're going to need an orange color, either by mixing it or if you have one that's already orange, that's fine. You're going to need a lighter blue shade, a red, and some yellow. I'm going to need a couple of different brushes here, and I'll be picking them out and showing you which ones in a minute. And you're also going to need 2 palettes, or in my case 2 paper plates, one specifically for white paint that we're going to be using for dipping, and then this will be your actual palette with all of your colors on it, and I'll show you how to set up your palettes in a minute. So I picked out a couple of brushes, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but you're also going to need your palette knife to mix a little bit of paint. Not a lot though, so if you want to use just a trashy brush that you don't really care about, that's fine. Now for your brushes, we want to keep it small because bubbles are very intricate little detailed things, so we're going to pretty much be using all detail brushes. This is the biggest brush size that we're going to be using. It's a round brush because it comes to this little tapered end. Pretty much all the brushes that I'm going to be using are tapered and rounds. I have this smaller kind of taper brush that's a little messed up, and I'm going to be using this for blending. I have these 2 little brushes. One is more rounded, the other is a little flatter, but they're both still pretty small because I have very small things that I need to paint. And finally, this is just going to be my personal preference. If you don't feel comfortable using a flat, you don't have to. But I'm going to be using this little flat brush, which literally looks like a little square, to do some line work around the bubble. And that's about it. You can use as many brushes or as little as you want. I'll be cleaning my brushes in between, so I'm only going to use these couple. Okay, so first I'm going to be setting up my dipping plate using just white paint on a paper plate. This paint is really watery because it's really poor quality, but it's cheap and I'm only using it to do an outline. So I'm just going to pour a whole bunch out and just let it kind of chill. I'm going to try to spread it out a little bit so I can fit my objects into it. Now it is kind of hard to do this with acrylics. You kind of have to have everything out and ready. But that's how you set up your first palette. And now I'm going to set up my color palette. The second palette is what I'm actually putting my colors on, so these 4 colors here. But I'm also going to be mixing some slightly lighter shades so I can do some ombres. So we have some blue, and I'm going to put a little tiny bit right next to it so I know to mix that. And we're going to do the same with the yellow, red, and orange. Okay, now that I have all 4 colors kind of spread out, I'm going to take a little bit of white again and put them next to my smaller splotches. That way I can mix them real quick. This is why I kind of spread them out a little bit. That way when I'm pouring this white, in case it goes everywhere, I can still have some pure colors. So what I'm doing now is I'm just mixing these together. I'm wiping off my knife in between. I don't have paper towels. I forgot. But I want to try to keep my colors as clean as possible. So I'm mixing this blue, and then I'm going to mix the yellow. And then we're going to be ready to start painting. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take an object and just kind of give it a nice little dip in the white paint and plop it down on our canvas. It gives us a very nice clean circle. And we're going to do this with a couple of different sizes. So like here I have just a little bottle cap. You're going to get paint on yourself, so like just accept it. This isn't like craft for neat freaks. And it's okay if they aren't perfect. And you can use the same one multiple times to get more faded bubbles. I'm going to try to use the egg. Now you're really just going to have to play around, sometimes tap off the excess. I'm gonna overlap them and push this up a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. So we have that. Just doing some random shapes, you know. And we're gonna have one big old boy in the middle. And I'm trying to kind of tap it against the plate to get some of the excess off. But, you know, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So if we have messed up bubbles, who cares? It's just for some fun. We're not here to be perfect. So as you can see, I have some nice little bubble shapes, and now's the fun part. We're going to start coloring them in. So to start, we're going to grab a little tiny brush and some of our colors. It can be any of the four that you want. We're going to pick a bubble. Let's do this one. And we're going to make this little box shape. You can draw this out in pencil beforehand if you want. And we're just going to start that. And grab a little tiny bit of white. And kind of finish the box. And bring them together. You might have to do a couple of coats, which is like the only real problem with this, but it's, you know, acrylic paint. It's not perfect, but it dries pretty fast, so we're going to have some great artwork pretty soon. Now all I want to do is I want to take another color. So I did blue for the first. I think I'm going to take yellow for the second one. Take a little tiny bit of yellow. And just on the opposite side, we're gonna do the same thing. Follow the curve of your bubble though, otherwise you're gonna have wonky bubbles. And that's not dark enough, so I'm gonna go back in. It's just a layering process. You find out what works and what doesn't. I'm probably gonna have to go back after this is dried a little bit and fix it. And we're gonna take the white again and do the same thing that we did for the blue, which is, let's grab some on our little brush friend and just boop, put it down here and kind of blend them together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my red, yellow, and orange, and I'm going to blend around the edge of this bubble, including closing it off. So it's going to take a little bit of finessing, and I'll stop periodically to show you what I'm doing, but first I'm going to do a nice little red line around it, and that's going to be on the furthest edge. So I'm going to tilt this slightly so I can get better handle of it. I'm just going to take this and push it around. And if your white is still wet, it will blend automatically. I know you can't really see it. I'll be sure to post a separate picture. That way you can really see how this is working. Go back in anytime you need. And you're just going to follow the line. If your white gets a little too out of hand, just stop. Rinse off your brush. And you'll have to wait and come back to that after it dries a little bit more. but we're trying to keep it right on the edge so it barely blends together. I actually don't mind how the white has kind of taken over here a little bit. Adds a nice little effect. Now this is going to be a little tricky if you're not really skilled with hand painting, like freehand. But we're going to try to close this gap a little bit because bubbles aren't semicircles, they're full circles. So I'm turning this again so I can work. And you're probably going to have to do it as well. Just turn your canvas wherever you need it. And kind of follow the line. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not trying to be perfect here. We're just trying to have a little fun. Trying to do something nice for ourselves. Have something pretty to hang on the wall during this fun time that we're all in right now. Now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of white and kind of follow that line I did. But I'm going to just kind of make it as thin as possible to close it out. So I have a full circle with a thicker line over here down into a thin line. And then I'm going to take a clean, just rinsing it out, clean brush, drying it a little bit, and try to marry these two over here. And just see what we get. Great, so I'm going to continue going around the circle with the orange and the yellow. And we're going to check in right after. Okay, so now we're going to go in with orange and yellow. I was going to cut away, but I don't want you guys to be confused as to what I'm doing. Meaning this tutorial is going to be a little bit longer, but you know what? It's worth it. We're all just spending some quality time together. So I'm taking my orange color and I'm just following the red line, kind of blending it down when I can. I'm not doing this super thick because I want my bubble to be transparent. This is also why we can't use a white canvas, because you wouldn't be able to really see these colors interacting. I'm probably going to start playing a little bit of music over top of this. That way it's not totally boring for you guys. So I hope you enjoy. Now that I finished with the yellow and with the red and the orange, I'm going to take my yellow and get close as I can, putting a little bit on the side of the orange. And it's okay that it looks like this, don't worry. Like I said, you're probably going to need to layer a little bit because these colors are pretty transparent. So I'm going to go close to the white and just follow my line. Sometimes I'm even going over the white a little bit to make it not so harsh. But as you can see, I'm kind of just tracing lines that I already put in. I'm gonna try to do a little bit of shading, just taking my yellow, not a lot, just enough to get a little bit of pigment onto the canvas. And that's our outline. So next what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a couple of random broken shapes to make some highlights and some depth to this bubble. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my blue color mixed with white, and I'm just gonna follow this line and make a pretty broken shape. It's not perfect, which is what we want. I'm also, down near where the bottom of the bubble is, I'm gonna make a little city looking escape. Just doing little tiny strokes. So now what I'm going to do is take some, let's do a little bit of this orange mixed with white and tiny little bit of the original color, and I'm just going to play around with it. So these are complementary colors, so they're actually going to make each other stand out a little bit more, which is a good thing to keep in mind. If you put all of your orange and blues next to each other, they're gonna pop a little bit more, which is what we want. Now, if I feel like an area is getting too thick, I'm gonna take just some water on my brush and kind of blend it out. Maybe I'll blend it into this one and just do the same over here. Yeah, that's cool, huh? I'm also going to take a little bit of yellow. Yeah, some yellow is going to look nice in here. I'm just going to pop a little down in here and some here. Just making some random shapes. I have some boxes, some lines, until I'm happy with it. I like how that looks. So now what I'm going to do is take some white paint. And I'm using white paint from my dipping plate, so I didn't have to pour more. And I'm gonna put in a couple of dots of highlight. I'm gonna put one here. Now where we have these two boxes, I'm gonna make some extreme highlights to where the bubble looks like it's shimmering. So what I'm gonna do is make a little star shape. And play around with that until I'm happy with it. And maybe add more highlights if I think I need them. And that's pretty much how you paint a bubble. You repeat the process for every circle that you put down. And then you can even take your brush and blend these out a little bit if you want it to look more blended, more like it's kind of seeping into your background, or like they're glowing, which is a really fun effect. But that's how you paint a bubble. I'm gonna finish painting the rest of these and I'll show you guys the final result. Alright, so here we have the finished product. And it's a really simple, really easy craft. This took me about an hour to do the whole thing, but that's also because I was filming. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that it helped you create something really pretty that you can hang up in your house or give to someone that you care about after all this mess is over. Voila! Now you have your own bubble painting. This craft is really fast and it doesn't take a lot of materials to do, and it doesn't take a lot of skills either. You can start as a beginner and practice with this technique until you get the idea of mixing paint and putting it down on the canvas. This is great for beginners because it teaches you how to have control. You have to use very little amount of paint without really going outside of your lines. However, it still gives you enough freedom to play around with colors and shapes and have fun with it. I hope you guys found this video helpful and that you'll stay tuned for more videos from me. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye!